it is a big news that's coming in at this hour. We're looking at Joe Biden now endorsing Kamala Harris, saying that the best decision that he made was picking Kamala Harris as his vice presidential candidate. And now he is going ahead and nominating her. Let me just read out the tweet for you. My fellow Democrats, I've decided not to accept the nomination and to focus all my energies on my duties as president for the remainder of my term. My very first decision as the party nominee in 2020 was to pick Kamala Harris as my vice president, and it's been the best decision I've made. Today, I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala to be the nominee of our party this year. Democrats, it's time to come together and beat Trump. Let's do this. President Biden, that's news just coming in, Gaurav, has endorsed Kamala Harris. The big question now within the Democratic circle, we know a lot of Democratic members are not in favor of Kamala Harris being the nominee. What does this mean? Does this mean that they'll end up having a closed convention or just go ahead with Kamala Harris on August 19th? Or are they going to open it up for others?
You know, that's extremely interesting because still a couple of days back, many were arguing that would she be his vice presidential nominee even for the second term, even for the second tenure. And the fact that he's endorsed Kamala Harris is huge because even in the Democrats camp, now there were several names, that were doing the rounds. You had names of the California governor, the Illinois governor, the Michigan governor, Colorado governor, that were doing the round, including Pennsylvania. And of course, as many argue, could it be Senator Bernie Sanders, or as an outlier, could it even be Michelle Obama, or is it too late for her to throw in her hat in the ring? So he's endorsed Kamala Harris. Joe Biden has endorsed Kamala Harris. Now remains to be seen at the Democrats convention whether she gets support of everyone, or will she have to fight it out? What's the strategy for it? Very, very interesting times in the United States of America, and especially for the Democrats, because the Republicans have their house in order, they have the funds, their system is rolling. The Democrats, of course, several hiccups in their election campaign right now.
Well, okay. We also have Sushant Sareen joining us on this big breaking news. Sushant, this is the big news that we are seeing with President Biden withdrawing, and also in the same breath endorsing Kamala Harris. It cannot get more interesting than this on a Sunday evening, late evening, so to say.
Whether it's interesting or not, I think it was quite expected. There was a lot of speculation whether, during the weekend, he will announce that he's withdrawing. And it was more or less understood that, they would be, or at least he would be endorsing Kamala Harris. And now, whether the Democratic Party is ready to go with her as the nominee, or there is going to be some kind of a challenge, I'm not aware of that. But look, here is the thing. If you are one of a prospective presidential candidate, would you want to jump into an election at this stage, or just become a kind of a fall guy? Maybe I'm being a little nasty on this, but if you are one of those, you're a governor somewhere, or you're a rising star of the Democratic Party, you would want to bide your time for another 4 years before you put in your hat in the ring, and not get into an election at this stage, this late stage, and then hope to win it. So I would imagine that in the natural course of things, it makes sense for them to go with Kamala Harris. If she wins, great. If she doesn't, then, there's somebody waiting in the wings to step in. So I would imagine that's the way things are likely to move, but it seems like a bit of an uphill battle for the Democrats at this stage. But it was very clear that I don't think Joe Biden was in any position to either campaign or if he had won, to stay in the presidency for another 4 years. I think his mental and physical faculties were severely impaired. And clearly, you could not expect that the most powerful country in the world is being led by somebody like him, who's not entirely in control of all his faculties. At least that's the impression, which was going around after the first debate, and then subsequent footages that were coming out of how he was interacting with people on the public stage. So yes, there were moments of lucidity. There were moments when he was, he was all there, and then suddenly, you would see that he's just not there. So I think this is a wise decision for him to step aside, and now one will have to wait and see how the election proceeds from here, or the campaign proceeds from here.
What was a clinch over here, and a real deciding factor, Sushant? The fact that polls were dropping, the fact that there was increasing voices within the Democrats who wanted him out or wanted him to withdraw, the fact that funders were withdrawing, that he was not making the 50 million mark by the end of July, which is what was the target, and then falling ill with COVID-19. Is it a mix of all of them, or was the fact that funding was not coming through the major factor over here?
No, I think each of these issues was important. I think basically the confidence was shaken in the fact that will he be able to swing this election in favor of the Democrats? Will the public actually vote for somebody like him, given the kind of questions that were raised about his health and his age? And I think everything else, after that it was a bit of a domino. A lot of the donors kind of became skittish. People within the party started questioning whether he should be the candidate or not, whether he should step aside. COVID probably was the last straw. That although frankly COVID is a pretty benign thing these days, but maybe that was just the last straw and kind of convinced him that look, you're very vulnerable to all kinds of sickness. So it's best that you've reached the top of the political ladder, and it's better to step aside rather than be pushed aside. So I would imagine it was a combination of factors rather than any one single thing, that just because the money was not coming in, that is why he was forced to step aside. I think he lost support within the party. People thought that this is not a winning candidate. They probably could not win, did not even have a chance of winning an election if he was the guy who was going to be on the Democratic ticket.
Right. Sushant Sareen, thank you so much for joining us here on India Today. We also have with us right now Rohit Sharma, who joins us from Washington, D.C., journalist from D.C. Rohit, what a Sunday to have. Joe Biden has withdrawn, and he has also nominated Kamala Harris. Is that what was expected? Because we did expect Joe Biden at some point in time to take that decision on whether he's going to stay on or withdraw. It could not have been kept on hold till the 19th of August for the Democratic National Convention.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we've seen everything the past 3.5 weeks, right? I mean, we saw that debate performance. We saw what's unfolded after that. We've seen an assassination attempt on former President Trump. We've seen Joe Biden, getting COVID. I mean, it's been crazy. But I mean, long story short, I think, Geeta, the bottom line was, Joe Biden needed some polling to get convinced that he would not be able to beat Donald Trump. And that's exactly what has happened. There have been data that's been presented to Joe Biden. His family needed to look at that data. I mean, he was pretty strong when he said, only God Almighty can convince him to drop out. But then I think a practical decision had to be taken. And the decision was that the Democrats are not polling well anywhere in the country. I mean, you look at the swing states, Trump is ahead by 5 points, 6 points. I mean, some of these states, Joe Biden only won by 2 or 3 points. So I think, they had to sit down, his family, they had to talk to the president. I know for a fact that Joe Biden did not want this decision to be made. But I mean, it's all happening because of DNC is only 3.5 weeks away, and they wanted to unite behind a candidate, and that candidate, as we all know, will be Kamala Harris for obvious reasons. But I mean, it's just unbelievable that what's transpired in the last 3 weeks. If somebody had asked, if Joe Biden was going to step aside, I would have said never. But what we have seen, especially after Trump's assassination attempt, the kind of sympathy wave he's gotten over the last week, the polling bump that he's gotten after RNC. I think it was going to happen. A lot of people were saying it was going to happen this weekend. And I mean, it did not come to many as a surprise. But then again, people in his orbit were very, very strong, and they did not want him to drop out.
Well, that's the big news that's coming in. Rohit Sharma, stay on with us. We'll keep coming back to you because this is the big story we'll be tracking here in India today. President Biden has withdrawn from the 2024 presidential race, but he has also endorsed Kamala Harris as the nominee for the Democratic Party. We'll have to wait and see how the party decides on this front.